Okay, we're now on our Asian Century News and Analysis, and we're highlighting today for this week the 25th year of the partnership of ASEAN and China. And we have 6 other items here, but ASEAN and China will hold a series of events to celebrate the 25 years of their partnership, culminating in a summit on September 7 in Vientiane, Laos. Second item, that's of course from the Jakarta Post. This segment intends to show our people that there is so much happening in Asia and in ASEAN. And we rely only on Asian news sources. We don't use Reuters, Agence France Presse, and all these, because they are also Western biased. Okay, and from the People's Daily, AIIB leads support for Belt and Road infrastructure projects. Bank to approve $1.2 billion in financing this year alone. We'll discuss, and you choose which one you want to discuss after I go through these 7 items. The BRICS Post over here, this is a website where all the BRICS news are put together. And we are highlighting this item. Creation of BRICS really scared some countries, according to the impeached Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff. And so she is insinuating that the U.S. has a hand in this. And really, if you go through what has happened, it was U.S. intelligence sources that fed their U.S. agents inside the parliament to create this situation, and it's called a parliamentary coup against Rousseff. But they're very confident, the progressive leadership there, that Rousseff will be back. So that's from the BRICS Post. Visit them on the internet. And then from, this is from the Vietnam News. Vietnam supports Laos ASEAN presidency. What is the significance of this, Mr. Ambassador? Later we'll ask for your insight here. Because with Laos as president of ASEAN, what does it imply, or what would it mean to the arbitration case and China-Philippine relations and so on? On a lighter note, the Bangkok Post, we have this item about concerns of hoteliers and resort owners for poor speedboat safety that is damaging tourism. We really wanted to highlight this because of a very interesting photo here. I don't know if you're ready with that. Well, maybe you're not, but so we go on. South China Morning Post. China now rivals US and Europe as growth engine for Asian exports. China is now an equal or even bigger driver of export growth in neighboring countries or economies than the US and EU combined, marking a significant shift in the economic pecking order since the 2008 global financial crisis. And from Malaysia, Asia 1, Malaysian gets 1 year in jail for insulting royalty. A Malaysian was sentenced to a year in prison after he admitted 14 charges of insulting one of the country's royal families. Muhammad Amirul Azwan Mod Sakri, a 19-year-old laborer, had posted derogatory comments about the royal family in the southern state of Johor between March and April on Facebook, the New Straits Times said. And they still have less majesty in Malaysia, and I didn't know that. So we'll ask our youngest fellow here which item he wants to comment on and analyze.
I think the AIIB
okay, go ahead.
News article is of interest to me. Well, now we're concerned with the bilateral approach between the Philippines and China. And I read an article that we were actually the last country to sign up for membership in the AIIB in year 2015.
Yes, that's right.
So we had many, I'd say second, third, fourth thoughts before we signed into membership. But since we are already a member of the AIIB, we should actually work for better relations with China, because that's the only way we could benefit fully from our membership as in the Asian Infrastructure
That's right, yeah.
Investment Bank.
Yeah.
So I think we should Well, I really don't understand this. How is it that when we became member of the Asian Development
Yes.
Bank, which is
Before, yeah.
Japan-led,
Yes.
and the World Bank, which is US-led,
Yes.
we never had a second or third or fourth thoughts, even though these countries were the countries who were able to already show us their capacity for destruction. Now you have AIIB, which is China-led, a country that has been very consistent with its noble, I'd say, human-oriented policies, and yet we're having second thoughts. So,
Well, as you were saying earlier, before we started the show, the U.S. had warned many countries
yes,
from joining the AIIB, but even the Western countries under their aegis quickly jumped and joined. Ambassador, you have anything to add to that?
Well, I would say that it was not second thoughts really on the part of the Philippines. Again, I will say look at the newspaper trail. That is my only source. I have no inside information to anywhere. But just following the newspaper reports, the Philippines, our finance department,
That's right.
from the beginning wanted to join AIIB. But there was some reservations which were not, shall we say, publicized. But in the end, we did come on board on the almost on the very last
Almost
day
on the very last day.
of the deadline. So for me, it tells another story. That if we look at the positive side of AIIB and the benefits it can bring to the country, our own agencies are for it. But there might be something political there that sort of gives us what Vince said is probably second thoughts. It's not second thoughts. We're in it already. But it's just...
Yeah, we were in it
Yes.
very early, and then we sort of was stumped by something.
Yes.
And that is the American factor, I suppose.
Well, maybe.
Because the Americans also told London,
Yeah.
don't join. Told Australia, don't join. But they did join. And so...
EU.
European Union also.
I think 4 countries from the European Union. Italy,
Okay.
Germany, France, and England.
I think on this other item, is it the ASEAN China 25 years, or is it the Vietnamese support for the Laos ASEAN presidency that you wanted to analyze? And
Well, actually both.
yeah, please go ahead.
Because the 25 years relationship as a dialogue partner between ASEAN and China is in a way significant by itself, and in fact it will be celebrated not just by one event, it is celebrated by a series of events culminating on the 17th of September. Now the thing is, that is 17th of September 2016. That is just a few months before the ASEAN summit also in Laos this year. Now, beyond that, we have to keep in mind that next year we will be hosting the ASEAN summit. So it's very important for us to track not only the important events that will happen in the celebration of the 25th year of ASEAN-China relations, but also what are the events that will happen in Laos, because it will have a very big influence and part in our own hosting next year.
Do you recall when the Philippines was last the president of ASEAN?
ASEAN?
How many years ago? Would you recall?
I'm sorry, I cannot remember the exact dates. Yes.
But in the past 6 years, the relationship of the Philippines with some members of ASEAN has experienced difficulties. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes. With the Duterte presidency coming in and the presidency of the Philippines in 2017 of the ASEAN, do you think this will change?
Well, you are tying it up to the Duterte presidency.
That's right, that's right. Yeah.
There could be an influence there, but you must not forget that the underlying, shall we say, influence is really our arbitration case and how we handled the South China Sea issues. Because when you said that there was not a very good, smooth relationship with ASEAN, something, happened. it had to do with our
That's
case
right,
in the South
arbitration,
China Sea. I have been saying this to whoever would listen, that, you know, the problem with ASEAN, with the prodding of the Americans, is in relation to our South China Sea issues, we have become a coalition of the unwilling. You know? So in a way, it looks like there's no cohesiveness, no coherence in ASEAN handling of the South China Sea issues. But why? I'm sorry, it's not ASEAN's fault. We are the ones that is leading the case there, and there's a lot to be said about how we handle the situation.
Yeah,
now,
go
going to the Duterte administration,
That's right, yeah.
that is where we have to have a review of our handling of the South China Sea issues, hopefully to bring about something that is more in accord with the ASEAN thinking and the ASEAN way, which is also in harmony with ASEAN-China.
Yeah. I see Vince tapping his fingers. Are you impatient to add something to this discussion?
No, specifically, I would like to point the new hope with
Yes.
the incoming Duterte administration. As we can remember, while he was still campaigning, Duterte was so open about taking the bilateral approach with China. But then when he won already, he then said something about a multilateral summit.
That's right. That presents to me an intriguing problem.
It's not an issue of inconsistency, I think. In fact, I read a Chinese article that says, in fact, they were enthusiastic about it. They called it, he knows the art of negotiation.
Okay.
So, in my perspective, I think what Duterte is trying to do is playing the balance game.
Yes, of course.
I think he's trying to maintain a certain degree of strategic flexibility.
I call it strategic ambivalence or ambiguity also. Yeah.
Well, what I'd say, what interests me is the reaction of China.
Yeah.
They accepted it as an art of negotiation, while the United States seemingly warned him and said, "We're watching you."
Yeah.
So you have here China, who's enthusiastic about it, who's willing to cooperate with this out-of-the-box leader, and you have here the United States of America already trying to flex its muscles, and by shouting warnings, in my point of view.
Yeah.
So I think that's an interesting insight there.
Well, I saved this item. Headline from the Inquirer: U.S. closely watching Duterte, says expert. And the expert is an American, Ernest Bauer. What right does he have to watch? You know?
Exactly.
He might be speaking for the American government.
Oh, is that a veiled threat? That was my question there.
I think comment on the issue here is their lack of capacity to look at us as their equals.
That's right. And by the way, that was a very important point during the press conference.
Yes.
When you said that China is treating us as equals in a bilateral discussion, negotiation, instead of the view that you join a multilateral because you're a weak country.
Yes.
We have 30 seconds.
That's my point of view. That's my opinion regarding the matter. I think we should take it as a compliment that China is inviting us to take the bilateral approach, because this shows their capacity, that they are willing to look at us as their equals. While the other countries who are pushing us for multilateral approach, I think they're doing so probably because they think of us as a weaker race, as a weaker state, and therefore we should go to them and ask for their intervention and their help. So I think we should take it as a compliment. We should not.
Last habol doon sa before the break.
The point about
Yeah.
a seeming inconsistency between multilateral and bilateral, there's none. The seeming inconsistency stems from the fact that China wants bilateral in terms of negotiations. But the Philippines or anybody else can still go multilateral because ASEAN has to have a role. Now, what is the role of ASEAN? I'm sorry, but I disagree with the direction of the present government. We have the ASEAN Treaty of Amity and Cooperation, and it has a dispute settlement mechanism.
Yes.
If I were to say something to the Duterte government, we have to still go to ASEAN, but discard our present ASEAN-China DOC declaration of Code of Conduct, go into ASEAN Treaty of Amity and Cooperation procedures.
Okay, well, we'll have to take this break now and we'll discuss it more thoroughly in the last segment. Okay, let's take this break.